Whether you're an industry pro or just starting out, this podcast is for you. As the battlefield of work keeps shifting and the rules keep changing, real connection and unfiltered learning have never been more urgent. Welcome to a space where recruiters, leaders, deep thinkers, and career changers come together to share raw, unfiltered experiences. They say a rising tide lifts all ships, so let's rise together. This isn't just a podcast, it's your everyday survival guide. Welcome to your digital bullpen. Myrna!
Hello!
How are you?
Hey, doing good,
good. We are doing it. We are live on LinkedIn, and I'm super excited. This is our welcome to your digital bullpen, everyone.
Yeah.
Super excited to be here. Myrna, our first live event. Can you believe that we just launched it? 10 months ago. And we've already, we have 30 episodes already, which is crazy. Our guests are all over the place, and our following is like absolutely exploded. Super fun.
I know we've had guests like veteran pros who've driven millions in sales. We've had producers straight out of like year one. We've even had a best-selling author not that long ago, executive coaches, sales trainers, and now we're live and we're going to be talking about AI today.
Yes, exactly. Today is all about AI and staffing and recruiting. It was a buzzword a little over a year ago. I mean, it's been around for a while, but I think in the industry, It's really hit over the last few years. And now it's kind of an urgent reality. We're going to go head first in how to make it work for your team. If you're out there watching, by the way, and have questions, drop them into the chat. We'll do our best to answer them in real time or at the end during our Q&A. So we will have time for that. But before we introduce our guests, Myrna, we have to do our shameless plug. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to YouTube. We're on Spotify. And if you like what you hear, what do we do, Myrna? You smash that like button.
Smash it.
Smash it. You've leaned into that word. I love it. So
I know. It took 10 months.
Yes, it took 10 months. Oh, my goodness. But guys, yes, definitely we want to continue to spread the love in the community. This has been awesome.
Yes.
So Myrna, before we introduce our guests, what's our deep dive today? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we know AI is confusing. Everybody's talking about it. There's a lot of emotions around it, whether it's fear or even feeling like it's an opportunity for the organization. So we're going to be talking a lot about transformation and adaptation with AI within staffing. But honestly, you can probably use a lot of these tools and resources with whatever team you have. So we are excited to dive in, and I know you're going to introduce our speakers.
All right. Yeah, let's do it. Let's introduce our experts. So first up, we have Justin Lechner. Justin is the AI builder. He is, love Justin, founder of Harmony. He really simplifies the complex, and I'm super excited to have him here. He's going to break down the difference between large language models like ChatGPT and then AI agents, which you'll hear a lot about. He'll explain what makes this generation of AI different. And it actually, like the AI that actually takes action, it doesn't just spit out information. So Justin, welcome to the stage.
Hey, awesome to be here. So excited for today.
Same. Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
Well, I want to introduce our next guest, Erin, a personal friend of mine and a wonderful ex-coworker. She's currently the VP of Transformation at LHH. She knows firsthand what it takes to implement AI at an enterprise scale. So we have that point of view today. So she's going to dive into how to align your teams, overcoming that resistance, and just keeping candidate experience front of mind so that when adaptation happens, the new tools and workflows work. So welcome, Erin.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. So happy to
Yes.
be here. Yes, from good old Jacksonville, out there with work for 3 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Usually in Seattle. Today,
Yes,
that's the beauty of
other
technology.
side. And our final powerhouse guest, Amy Yackowski. We like to call her the readiness architect, change management, implementation strategist. Really, she's someone who's led the charge for companies big and small. Really excited for Amy because we hear about change management, but the change readiness aspect, Amy is going to really unpack why so many AI rollouts flop. She's going to walk us through the readiness questions that everybody needs to ask before pushing go, and how to lead a transformation that actually sticks. So really excited to have Amy here with us. Amy, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hello.
So happy to have all of you here. Thank you. Our first live event. So far we haven't screwed it up, so we'll keep rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I am going to kick it off to a question because the three of you all live very different lives, but we all swim the same circles. And so I think that I'd like to kick it off to hear from each of you on why is AI and kind of the adoption really top of mind in your daily lives. Start out with you, Justin.
Yeah, well, so again, super excited to be here. First live event, it's amazing. So for us, Harmony builds AI products mostly for staffing firms and other high volume recruiting organizations. So the question of AI relevancy is core to what we do. What we're thinking about is twofold. One, how do we build amazing products that really deliver on the promise of AI for staffing firms? And then secondly, we have to really focus on getting over change management hurdles that are really critical to land these products within organizations. So on a daily basis, we're working with many leaders across all shapes and sizes of firms in order to land AI in high impact ways that are often much less trivial to land than I think is expected, which I'm excited to chat about today.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
Great.
Yeah. Erin.
Yeah, when I think about AI and why it's important in our impact today and some of the things that I'm focused on, it's really around, it's a really unique time to be in recruiting. Recruiting in itself hasn't changed. At the end of the day, we are still a consultant to our clients, a consultant to our candidates, and where the magic happens is right around that match. But how we do that has gotten so much more complex, and people are bogged down with so many more steps in the process than when I first started running a desk. And you think about all of the things that we ask our recruiters and our salespeople to do today that we weren't doing before. And how do we get back to those basics? And if AI can allow us to get to the basics and allow people to focus on the job that actually they want to do and they enjoy doing, that's where I see this really helping our business not only grow, but to stay relevant.
Love it. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Amy, round us out here.
All right. Well, I have my giant Disney coffee mug here, and this is Mr. Toad. And I think when I think about AI, it feels very much like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride at this moment. And I think that this is the time, this is the opportunity for us to maybe zoom out, but also zoom in and really think about the intentionality around what we're doing and why we're doing it when it comes to AI, because it can be so easy to just get pulled and distracted into all of these different twists and turns, especially as you're trying to introduce this monumental new technology into not just what you do, but how you do it and who does it and why.
Absolutely. Well, let's just dive in. I mean, I want to bring on Justin. He's our AI builder. So Justin, just explain to us, we're 5, what even is AI? And, talk to us about AI in recruiting. How do LLMs work and differ from agents? Break it down.
Yeah,
I don't even know I've ever heard those words come out of my mouth in a sentence. So break it down.
A 5-year-old might actually understand better. Maybe explain it like you're going to your grandpa.
Yeah.
Yes.
I could see how it's so confusing. There's so many different terms. The truth is, AI has been around for a very long time, and the promise of AI has been around for many, many decades at this point. What's really changed over the last decade is the level of compute and data available is such that we're actually able to deliver upon that promise now. So I would say there's two important terms to focus on today. The first are large language models like ChatGPT being the most well-known, and a few others that people probably use on a daily basis. What's so exciting about large language models, which is the underlying technology breakthrough, is it's a AI technology in which there is a generative response to input. So you're able to take any sequence of text or questions that a human could send into this model and get a response out, which sounds really basic, but is actually super powerful because you now have this amazing thinking machine that could answer basically anything. And I think that's why it's taken kind of the world by storm over the past couple of years now, as people have really been creative with what these models can do. Now, what's interesting is when these models first came out, of course, very quickly we recognized the potential of just getting answers and having something that's better than Google at giving you answers than just giving you links, right? Now we actually get an answer rather than having to click into links. But what the models couldn't do at first is actually take action. So when I think about AI agents, the fundamental idea here is going from a model that is capable of answering questions and providing information to a model that is capable of taking action. A term within the technology world is react, which means reasoning and action. And that's core to agents. It means one, stepping back and being able to reason. So when dealing with a task, first asking, how should I approach this task, and formulating a plan, and then executing and actually acting upon that. So very basic two-step process that humans do all the time, which now we gave models the ability to do. And that sudden change allows us to have models that not only answer questions, but are capable of completing tasks. So again, if there's one thing to take away, I would say when thinking about agents, it's really AI models now applied with and equipped with tools to be able to complete tasks and take action.
I love it. So, I mean, again, thank you, Justin. That really kind of like simplifies it. And I think large language models, you hear AI agents all the time, right? And how people are engaging them. And so there's a lot of hype and a lot of fear around these things, right? Like companies, fear is like, we all go to fear. It's our number one thing. So how do we separate, Amy, asking you a little bit, like, how do we separate the noise from the real opportunity here? Because again, so much noise. How do we separate that?
I think Justin touched on something really key with that is like, what is the intentionality around what you're trying to do, what you're trying to solve? I think the big thing is that it can be so easy to get dazzled by the next shiny thing that AI can do. But it's really, truly at its fundamental core as an organization, thinking about what it is that you do and where you can actually insert this new technology to help support it. Yes, it can do a lot of things, but we also have to remember that it is not, how do I want to say this? It doesn't feel, it doesn't think. It's just simply taking data and putting that data, whether it's numbers or words, it's taking that data and compiling it in a way that it thinks it's most logical. So I think the biggest thing to think about when we talk about AI is that, you know, we always hear these stories about, oh, like recently, oh, the AI tried to, you know, like blackmail someone. The AI didn't blackmail someone. The AI just knows the concept of blackmail. Yeah. And knows how to leverage it because it is, in essence, parroting, it's mirroring what we have trained it as humans to do or not do. So it's really learning in that regard. It's not blackmailing in its true sense. It's just mirroring some not so great behaviors that some people may have done and that it's been trained on over time.
Wow.
I love it. Yeah. And that's true. I mean, I think that a lot of the fear is that AI is going to take over, but I think to your point, it's what you feed it. And I think making sure that you have those guardrails and structure in place before you really lean in. And so I want to kind of move over a little bit as we kind of continue to dive into this is Erin, I'm gonna pick on you a little bit because you have you work for LHH, which is a large organization, right? So I mean, globally, 8,000, 10,000 employees in the United States, really a solid organization. And when you talk about large companies and then the small, medium-sized companies, sometimes the large ones are afraid to dip in because they're like, no, we have so much. It's that fear, right? That fear of going into it. So it's when you talk about like where to start, I feel like you've maybe figured out a little bit of the beginning recipe here. And so tell us a little bit about like your view and how you would, impart your wisdom onto other folks that are either A, starting and failing, or B, afraid to start.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, implementing AI, there's plenty of ways to fail at that. And we've definitely gone through our own like failures at LHH and use cases that haven't necessarily worked, but we rebounded very, very quickly. And I think where we've been able to do that, and to go on to Amy's point, is, really taking a look at what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And I think that we all, again, get very distracted by the next shiny thing. And we almost create the problem because we like the shiny thing. And that's really not how we're going to be able to start to really build a culture that's technology forward, that's assisted by AI. And so when I think about like the problems that we want to solve, and the fear is, really leaning into how AI can help the traditional recruiter and salesperson and help them understand by giving them use cases that don't replace any element of their job. Because again, that's where the fear is. And, that fear isn't just in recruiting, but like I was doing a career day at my son's school last spring. And, I was talking about AI and I'm like, oh, who knows what AI is? And of course it's Seattle. So a bunch of hands were like up in the air and everything. But, I had a couple of kids explain it. And then there's just one kid like, bouncing down the seat of his pants. And so I called on him. He's like, AI is the end of humanity. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Oh God.
Yeah. And so I'm like, exactly. And I'm just like, wow, like we have this one kid in this classroom, his dad is like a really famous YouTuber. It's doing all about this like co-pilot stuff on YouTube. And then there's this other element of like whatever this kid's parents do, like in their dinner conversations, right? And so there is a real fear out there. And so it's just, how do you bring down that fear to a more manageable level? Because it's not just at home. It's just not in the first grade class. It is at home. It's at their jobs. Or like, there's legitimate fear that AI either is going to take over my job or can't do my job as well as I can. And how do you balance that, right? And so what we did at LHH is that we really started with high impact but low risk to the user use cases. And so we took back and we were really intentional about what processes and what problems do we want to solve. Well, we want to, one of the processes that we want to solve is how do we free up more time on a recruiter's desk so that way they can have meaningful conversations with their candidates and their clients, because AI will never replace that part of the process, but we can replace other parts of the process. And that's a value add to those recruiters. And so when we developed our use cases, we were very intentional of leading from a with them, like what's in it for me of the user, because the company at the end of the day is going to get the same benefits if our people buy into the new process and the technology. And so recruiter productivity isn't just to interview more candidates. I mean, that's great,
right?
But to get the recruiters to actually do that, you have to show them it's a better way of doing things for them. So, which is huge at the enterprise level. I mean, it's hard at a small company, but to really, have this type of change management, in a large enterprise organization, is you have to celebrate those wins and celebrate those use case successes along the way.
Well, and you bring up a good point, Erin, because, we've been in recruiting long enough where we've seen, when LinkedIn came about, it was like, oh no, right? But we've learned, we've adjusted to new technology, but there is still that risk of like, will this impact my job? And so I want to kind of hear from the group, right? I want a group discussion on which are some of those manual tasks that recruiters can kind of hand off first without sacrificing that like human connection, which is what we know recruiting is all about.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to start with AI isn't going to replace your job, but a recruiter that uses it is.
Yeah.
And it is about the efficiencies, right? And so again,
Yeah.
takes some of the low impact tasks that we, high impact but low risk tasks that we started with are, more on the generative side, because the agentic side is still somewhat new, and that takes a lot more processes and more, pilots and testing in place. But where we started like a year ago is like, how do we just, generate a better job ad? Because no one wants to write a job ad every single time that their job they have to post, right? Or how do you do this intake or document interviews, and et cetera. So really, again, it's the output of administrative tasks rather than the input of meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah,
Justin,
I totally agree with you on that. And I was going to add to that. When thinking about opportunities, I think it's good to think about volume of a certain process as well as complexity. And when thinking about complexity, which is really important, tasks that tend to be multi-step, say 5 to 10 steps, will be harder from both a technical feasibility as well as change management perspective to land with an organization compared to a task that might only be 1 or 2 steps. So when thinking about quick wins, to Erin's point, where you could see impact right away, look for tasks that might be, for instance, resume screening, data enrichment, taking resumes, parsing that into structured data in a way that you could not prior to this technology. So you're now actually able to have more completion rate, more data capture. Matching is a great example. These are all, fairly complicated, but not as complicated as a multi-step process, such as let me go find the best candidates in my database, reach out to those candidates, follow up if they don't respond, schedule time with those that are fits. Let's start with something simple to build the muscle and then go from there. So those are a few areas that we're seeing impact.
Which, even diving into that more, Justin, like I know that matching before, when you used our systems, it was keywords that it would look for, and the data had to be there in specific places in your database. Whereas now with these LLMs, they can actually read that raw data, right, and help you that unstructured data, and really help you kind of like manifest a better match, which is super easy way to get a quick win.
100%. And I think that's a really important point. And actually, I think this is a fairly common misunderstanding. I often hear people say, well, our data quality or data completion is really poor, so we can't work with AI tools yet. And there's some truth in that, but it's never been easier to go from unstructured data to semi-structured data or structured data. So if you have data sitting somewhere, the ability to get to the point of readiness in which you could use these models tends to be actually much lower than you think, because these models are so good at turning unstructured data into data that's ready to be used by models.
Absolutely. And Justin, just staying on this topic, because we are seeing that there are a lot of tasks like pre-screening the interviews, the texting of candidates. But from like your perspective, how is AI actually showing up in the wild and impacting recruiter workflows right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think some of the key themes we're already hitting on are spot on. It's thematically, it's really about augmentation, not automating or replacing recruiters. And we look for, in recruiting, for instance, for specific parts of a recruiter's workflow that AI could essentially be a delegated assistant that could go complete a task. So again, a few to mention are resume parsing. Sounds silly, but actually is really impactful and much better this generation than it has been before. That helps you build a really good corpus of data. Pre-screening is more than just creating a score. I think part of what makes this technology so good at pre-screening is we're moving from sort of a black box score 0 to 100 to more of a transparent box in which you could see very specifically why or why not do we believe this candidate is a match for a job. And you have a receipt back and reasoning to explain the rationale, which a human then could review and audit, which tends to be extremely important. Right. And then I would say lastly, for I would say nudging and sort of reactivation follow-ups, AI is really good at kind of a set and forget. Let the AI model go follow up with folks, make sure that we're engaging with every candidate as well. Paul always talks about how bad the ghosting problem has gotten, which is true. So letting AI engage at the right time, which we'll talk about more, is
Right.
another area that the models are really performant today.
Awesome.
Well, and everything that you're saying, I mean, it's scary, right? Because you're talking about different steps for every activity, right? And like a recruiter doesn't like necessarily care about that, but there are steps that need to happen for that, you know, for AI to actually help our workflow. So change management, let's kind of dive into that, because this is where we've talked a ton as a group that this is where it kind of goes wrong, right? So I'm going to kind of pull on Amy here because she's our strategist expert working with companies to help them with the change management, but you have like a different perspective of that. So please share with us.
All right, here we go. It's about to get spicy. So
Let's go. Let's get spicy.
Amy's spicy today, so she
I was
warned
saying, I
us.
think Mercury's in retrograde. I don't know what's happening, but so yes, when it comes to change management, that's a term that we've been talking about for 30 plus years. And from my lens, traditionally, that's the thing that is focused on risk mitigation, CYA, if you will, to a certain extent, and communication. So making sure people know how to do what they need to now do and reduce the risk of someone getting that wrong, right? That's often. So usually change management is, say, like training that happens maybe a couple weeks before you go live, and a couple of communications, maybe a town hall, a couple email blasts, maybe a newsletter, and so on. And we think that we're good. We checked the box. We did, as I like to refer to it, as checkbox change. It was a line item on the plan and we did it. But truly change, if we think about ourselves in our lives, if we have children or we were once children, when it comes to change is not merely knowledge and understanding and desire and awareness. Change is actually adaptation. You are, and it's less about adopting something new and more about leaving what you know, understand, trust, feel comfortable with, feel successful with behind. And so when we think about this idea of change readiness versus change management, management is still valid. I am not discounting change management. You still absolutely need those pieces. But there's this whole other behavioral component that needs to happen that we often overlook. We think if people are given the training, and maybe we did a survey where everybody said, yes, I want more technology. I want to use AI in my job. And we think, great, people want it. This should be easy peasy. Where it often goes wrong is that we discount the amount of behavioral shift that needs to happen in order to make this change not just effective for the go live, but to actually stick and create real transformation for the organization for the long run. It's changing habit, not just action.
Yeah, I love it. And that's when I met Amy and she said change readiness, I'm like, we've all heard change management. It's something we always talk about, but it's nice to hear that getting ahead of the problem, right, as we talk about. And so I want to dive into this more. I saw Erin smiling a little bit. You've been through this a lot. Justin, you've helped companies go through it. So tell me, like, when we hit resistance, whether it's budget freezes, fatigue, internal politics can also be a huge thing, especially you're dealing with folks that maybe they're just of a different generation that hasn't leaned into AI and they don't trust it yet. So you have a lot of those conflictions. So how do you help a company moving forward without losing momentum? I mean, Erin, tell me about, like, you did a lot of this, like probably change readiness and change management. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was thinking and kind of reflecting about some of the things that have been happening over the last, year at LHH as Amy was talking, and change management, it can very easily be a check mark on a long list of items. And to be honest, it is a checkbox on my long list of every time I go through some sort of implementation. But how I approach that is different now. And so because it isn't just change management, it's how do you build and change your culture around the tools that you're providing. And so what I learned is that it's not the teams implementing the technology. And even though I come from the business and I've been a recruiter and in the industry for 15 years, my word doesn't mean anything to the new recruiters any longer. But what
Correct.
does is the culture and the change management from a community of celebrating the wins, showing people how it works. And so we've actually created like groups of champions across the country that share, like they're the SMEs of how to use a new tool, but they're also the ones that are pushing out success stories and getting success stories and feeding those to other champions in other markets. And so it's really this grassroots approach that did start with a change management top-down approach, but now it's going wide. And so it's, you know, I facilitate, or we have teams facilitate different aspects of it, but we are no longer the leaders. We're just the ones that kind of push ideas forward, but we let the SMEs own the change management piece because they're the trusted ones in the job today.
Oh, SMEs, how we love that word. Subject matter experts. That's a good one. Yeah.
Especially in AI.
Yeah.
It's really great the buy-in because they're sharing success stories and they feel heard. I mean, they like to be able to have a sounding board with their feedback and their success stories and how, you know, maybe this particular use case could have been done differently and this worked for me instead. And then we roll something out from their learnings. And again, they feel heard, they feel respected, and they feel like they're a part of the process rather than just receiving a tool and being told to use it.
I love that. And so to like kind of recap like a little bit, Erin, it's change management. Obviously that change readiness is ensuring that you're ready to where it's not a top down push, right? You're engaged to the people that are lateral and actually in the trenches, right? And so ensuring that they're the champions, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, and so just as I guess maybe a takeaway here, at least for me personally, it's not so much about what you're trying to implement. It's just how you're getting your teams ready for that, how you're building out the training, and then really picking some champions within the organization that are seeing the success or even just excited to use it. I know my company recently loaded some AI stuff and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to get to sourcing. I can't wait to get to interviewing. So it is exciting, but again, can be scary if you're just kind of thrown to the wolves with it, right? So
I love it.
And I'll just add one final note
Please
with that.
do.
Please.
Yes.
Erin,
All the notes.
my heart, I was like, my heart was just swelling as you were talking about your approach with it. And I would say everything that you're doing, you have built your change network. You've created a center of excellence, essentially, that is starting from the middle out or even the bottom up. And I think that that's so important. I will say one final thought with this readiness component is it happens and it starts way sooner than you would otherwise think change management or change of any kind is introduced. In fact, it's something that I like to talk as phase 0. It's the work that you're doing. It's the training of the individuals to start to develop a different mindset, a growth mindset, a curiosity. So that way they are leaning in to when this project kicks off, they're leaning in as opposed to stepping back or staying in the dark. It really is co-created change much, much earlier than what you would otherwise think, because you want those champions to not just have the capabilities to be able to engage and guide and support, but you also want them to have the courage to do it too.
Yes. You know, it's this reminds me, and I won't name any names, but there's been organizations that we've talked about change management, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we operate in change really well. We're totally ready for this. We don't need to do change preparedness." And I'm like, "Okay, do you really?" There's a lot of times we think we do well with change because our people are resilient, right? And they're good with it, but that doesn't mean you did it right. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to be a little bit, retrospective and look at how that works. So thank you. Anything else on the topic before we keep rocking and rolling, Justin?
I was just going to add.
Any questions out there?
I was going to add one quick thing that this is resonating a ton with me as well. And I think it's really interesting. I think we're hitting on a critical point here, which is ultimately there is a cultural buy-in and mindset that is required to have success here.
Yes.
And I think the truth is, and this is a hard truth that often is not, I think, said out loud, change is really hard. This technology is disruptive. It's going to, be messy. It's going to change processes. There's going to be some amount of resistance. the companies that ultimately are going to have success are the ones that embrace change, recognize that there are inherent risks, but are willing to move forward regardless. And lastly, I think view this as building a muscle. AI is here to stay. Building change and change management is a muscle, a cultural and organizational muscle, and getting reps early on. And that, I think this is why all of us are really nailing this point. Getting reps early on in the life cycle of this technology is so critical, because if you're able to do it once with maybe a small project to start, you could then continue to push yourself and continue to build that muscle over time. So
I love it.
100% agree with everything.
I love how you describe that, Justin. Thank you.
Getting reps. Yes, getting reps. I love it. Gym every morning. Well, I'm going to move on to something else, because I think that as we continue to dive into this, there is this, whether it's the recruiter that says, no, I'm better at dealing with candidates. I've had recruiters say, no, I don't want AI talking to my candidates, or the company's saying it's going to damage my brand, or it's not, it's going to blackmail somebody, as Amy said, right? Like it's not, there's a lot of fear around this. And so as we move into the candidate experience, I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about really what the candidate likes with AI. And Justin, I'm going to lean on you, because I think you have a lot of data points on really where AI is super effective and the candidates want it. And then really where's that cutoff to where it's time for the human in the loop, right?
Yep, absolutely. I think the key here is really simple as well, which is, we talk about candidate experience all the time, and with AI, it's no different. There's good candidate experiences and bad candidate experiences. And I think we all could kind of understand if we were to audit an experience, if it was good or bad. For candidates, what they want is to be served at the time in the manner that they would like to be served. So where AI tends to be really helpful is rapid response. As Paul, you've talked about many times, many candidates are not being responded to at all today. So not only can we ensure with AI that every candidate is being engaged, but we can engage them within seconds of them engaging with us when they are ready to take action. And then relevancy. So if you're reaching out to a candidate, I think the best case, it's good to kind of have a contrast of experiences. The best case is, I'm looking for a job. I get an outreach saying, hey, we found this job. It's perfect. It aligns with everything you want. It's in the location you want, the pay you want, the position you want, and at the right time. And I'm like, great, this is magic. I was looking for a job. How did they know? Let's get on the phone right now. That's the best case. The worst case is probably what many of us are experiencing, which are these texts we're all getting. I think everyone's getting, where you have no idea who they are, if it's real. It's not a job that fits your skill set. Just zero relevancy. So what's key is meeting candidates where, when, how they want to be meted or met, and not kind of falling into this trap of letting AI go rogue and engaging with candidates without any sort of guardrails. So I would say that's really the principle I think about, and that we encourage when working with organizations, just focusing on relevancy and timing.
And this one's really near and dear to my heart, because I know that in the application process, when a candidate applies to your job, that they're engaged, they're there, like they literally have you. And so many companies let that lie and they don't do anything right there. And it's because their ATS is not engaged with AI. They have not integrated. They don't have, there's so many ways that I've had looking for jobs in my past that I had an AI actually reach out to me and start engaging me right there and asking questions. I'm like, oh, I feel seen, I feel heard. And so there's just so many little tiny things that don't require a lot. And I know that it creates that candidate experience being feel seen and heard, right? Anything else from Erin, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, I think AI is a game changer in candidate experience. And I think, I echo everything that Justin just said. Candidates, especially in the world of staffing, just want to be followed up with. They just want to hear. And so, and the research shows, I think Bullhorn in their grid report that came out just a couple months ago, the research shows that they don't care if it's AI or not, as long as they're getting a job faster, that they're a better fit for. And so our own internal bias, especially our more tenured recruiters, that I don't want AI it's going to ruin my candidate relationship. I mean, that's not the truth. The truth is in the NPS scores that you didn't follow up with your candidates. And so we do have to put AI in there to do that. And so, and I think about every step of my life. Like if I'm willing to let AI plan an entire vacation for me, then I should be able to let it do a pre-screen.
Totally. That's a good point.
Yeah, I love that.
I'll add to what Erin and Justin both said, in that I think, Justin, to your point, what's really important from an organization is first and foremost understanding who you are and what you do and how you serve your candidates. For example, if you pride yourself on being a very high touch organization, you really need to think about how you're introducing AI into your candidate experience, your candidate engagement, and where it makes the most sense, right? Because there is a difference between efficiency and effectiveness. And I think it's really important when we think about the candidate experience. Justin, you touched on it. Meet them where they are. And instead of saying every single person now has to shift from going from this type of engagement to another, maybe consider having a little choose your own adventure type option. So it's like, if someone does just want to feel seen and heard and have a chat with whoever or whatever is on the other side of it, that's fine. But there are other people, whether it's generationally or just their relationship or their adaptability with technology and change, that they want someone that is they want a little bit more TLC from a human perspective. So I think it's really important when you think about where you're introducing it and how, what really is needed based upon the candidates. And that really starts by just having conversations with them. Don't assume. As part of your readiness, you're evaluating your organization's willingness and ability to adopt something new. But there's also equally important to have conversations and interviews and voice of the customer and the client to make sure that whatever you're designing is not creating a less desirable experience for the people that you serve.
And I what's interesting, and I was thinking as we were talking, Amy, you said the word NPS score, I believe, or somebody else did. And we all have NPS scores because we want to see how our company's doing, right? We want to see how our people are doing and where we're failing. But then when it comes to putting AI in the front, we're so hypercritical. If AI fails on one candidate, we're like, it's never going to work, right? But in reality, your people are failing 10 times as often than AI is. And it's like, why do we hold AI to this higher standard? Right. And sometimes when it's like, there is that curve that actually goes into it. So I think there's something to be said about how critical we are right off the bat. If a couple people get upset, how many people were upset before that with your own people? There's that interesting dynamic there.
Yeah, you touch on, I'll add one final thought there, Paul, because you did touch on something. I think whether it's AI or any technology adoption, I've been in this biz, I've been doing this implementation and technology stuff for 20 years almost. And often we're very quick to blame the technology for a failure, but it's because we're aiming for certainty in whatever it is we're doing. And Justin, you noted it earlier, like the small things. I think if we view any technology, whether it's a whole new ATS, whether it's introducing a new filter in your email or bringing AI into the mix, if you view it more as experimentation, this is a lab, right? We are developing, we're testing, we're learning, we're trying, we're failing, and we're trying again. We're viewing it in a much more adaptable way as opposed to aiming for certainty right out the gate. Number one, that allows for a lot more opportunity for how that technology can be used, but it also can significantly reduce the amount of fear and resistance and hesitation to lean into these changes, because it's not a you must, it's a let's try. I think that's a really important distinction. It feels safer to play as opposed to get it right the first time.
I love it.
It does put a lot of that emphasis on that tool that we're trying to, implement. So it is bringing in a lot of that fear, whether it's fear because it's going to accidentally do, as Paul said, blackmail a candidate for you, or it comes down to the budgeting, right? Like, do we really need this? Is it really going to save time? And I think anybody that's even dabbled in it knows it can. But there are some, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Just still feelings around that, right? So Erin, I'm going to kind of call on you here because you've seen the governance, like the behind the AI, the understanding of bias laws, privacy regulations, maybe misaligned teams, which creates that hesitation. But where do you see companies getting stuck the most, and what's usually hiding underneath that like hesitation from your perspective?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and something that I have to think about every single day is, this is a brand new topic like AI and how companies use it. And I think that the laws are actually not even close to catching up to how fast the technology is. And so where a lot of companies that are thinking is, well, what if I invest in this and then 3 months down the road, something better comes along, right? And so there's that fear of always being behind. And so like even spending money just to have something better come along that they can't invest in at that time. So there's this hesitation of, how do I make the right choice? Do I know I'm making the right choice? And then you have the other hesitation around, how do I know that this tool is going to be compliant? And so and I mean, we've all seen the cases, especially recently with Workday making the rounds in the news. And there's, that's probably going to change the way that a lot of us are going to be working. It's already changing the way that we're working and, thinking and considering things. But when that's settled is really going to have an impact. And so, holding yourself to the highest standard from a compliance perspective is really hard to do when the bar is always rising. And so what is that compliance metric, right? And so I think there's just that fear of, how do I like open up this can of worms and maintain it and always stay on top of it because it is such a risky thing, right? And so when I think about fear and just the pause, it's just like we can't even wrap our heads around, like, again, how quickly the technology is changing and the tools are changing. And we can't keep up from a company perspective, not just my company that I work for, but any company. Like, you have to have somebody just doing that all day. You need AI to help you with that.
Yes. And I think and what's interesting is when you lead into it, you talk about compliance, we talk about, hesitations, but then Amy and Justin, I'm going to kind of look at you here, but there's this thought that companies should aim for zero disruption during change, right? We're like, all right, how can we make sure this doesn't disrupt our people, our workflow? But it kind of feels unrealistic. So in your view, how does chasing that kind of smooth, maybe slow things down? And what should leaders focus on instead if they want to really drive that momentum?
Well, I grew up in Florida, so I'm going to throw a bless your heart out there. Like, candidly, disruption, change of any kind, growth of any kind requires disruption.
Yes.
And I would challenge to organizations like, oh, we can't distract the business. We can't disrupt what we're doing. That's when I get a little spicy Amy-ack, and I'm like, well, then you're not ready to change. Come back. Let's come back when you're willing to take that on. But I think it goes back to a little bit of what I said earlier, that if you shift your mindset, transformation doesn't have to be big bang. In fact, most transformation, most revolutions, right? Things that have completely reimagined or reshaped what we do, who we are, how we perform, like how we navigate. Those things have taken time. They weren't just like a flash bang and then everything is different. I mean, you even think about from prior technologies. I was reading an article recently where he talked about how there's GPTs, quote unquote, not like ChatGPT, but GPTs have been around for a really long time, meaning general purpose technology. You've had things like the printing press, you've had electricity, you had the internet, and now you have AI. You have these things, but even with electricity, it took about 40 years from when electricity was first introduced to when factories were able to actually like fully adopt it and implement it in a way that wasn't just like little pockets here and there. So I think when we approach any type of change, we don't have to, do these big bangs. We can create these small experiments over time, but it really fundamentally comes down to if you're hesitant for disruption, you first need to take a really good look at where you're already being disruptive in your business. And I don't mean that in like a positive, like we're changing things for the better, but where you're actually not working as well as you could be, where you're already creating disruption to your ability to effectively execute what it is you do within your business. So I think that that's the big piece of it. And I would even say take it one step further, where before you even introduce any new technology, you need to get really clear on who you are, what you do, why you do it, and how you're doing it. Because the moment you introduce any new technology into it, it is going to disrupt, and often it can disrupt in the way that you don't want it to, because of these other things that are happening under the hood that you're maybe not fully aware of. And so it becomes a disruption because now it is negatively impacting how people are going to, do their job.
I love it. And so I can't believe we're already at 50 minutes, and I know we have 10 minutes left. So I want to keep moving through, and we might have you guys back because this is going to be great. And we have a lot of people in the chat that are agreeing with you, but I want to move a little bit on to, we've now adopted it, right? We've decided what we're doing. We're implementing. There's disruption, but we're leading into it. Erin's probably in her mind going like, oh my God, PTSD. Now we're looking about like metrics, right? So how do we know it's working, right? I think as an organization, it's one thing to say, or people are happy, but there's something to be said about making sure that we can measure success. And so, Erin, I want to talk a little bit about like what was your measure of success when you implemented this product or different products in different areas?
It's so easy in staffing just to have a fallback metric of did we make more placements and did we increase our billing, yearly billings, etc. And yes, that is a part of it. But did we, a metric that I view as important is, did we make an impact on that recruiter in their own experience of working for our company? And so I think it's really, when I think about AI specifically, is our competitive advantage against other recruitment firms that aren't as progressive as us yet in that space. And so, are we recruiting top talent? Are we retaining that top talent? And what do they say about our tech stack is really the metric that I'm interested in. And if all of those move in the right direction, then we're automatically going to increase our billings and we're automatically going to increase our revenue. And so for me, it's going downstream because the billings will follow. And so, if I can think about, using you were talking about having like a screening bot, Justin, and data freshness and all of this, like that's all. If we implement these ideas first, it's not just about increasing billings and doing more interviews. It's like, what candidates are we using? Where is AI surfacing the candidates? And how are we, what does that journey look like? And it's so much more. It's about the touch points and about the experience that we're creating both externally and internally. Are we easy to work with and are we easy to work for?
Oh, those are great.
I love it.
No, I love that. And, if a company is able to get to this point, right, where they're seeing some of the successes, as these teams are doing this, what's the real difference between adoption and transformation, and why are both important to like succeed?
Who wants to attack this one?
Anyone.
Adoption versus transformation.
I'll take it. And then Erin and Justin, I would have you probably say things much smarter than me on it. So I will say, for me, adoption is the short term, is the measure of what happens immediately after this new change is introduced. And when I say immediately, I would say within the next, the 6 to 8 weeks after. Are people using it? How consistently are they using it? Transformation is really what Erin touched at the beginning of this chat, which is creating a center of excellence, as Tony Robbins would say, CANI, continuous and never-ending improvement. So that way, as an organization, it's this, the effort is not just pushing this thing forward and now we have this thing and we use this thing. It's how are we continually evaluating? How are we continually adapting, improving, optimizing, not just this thing, this piece of technology that we're using, but how we actually operate as an organization. That's really transformation. That's the stickiness. And it's less about the top down, hey, we have this new tool that we now want to introduce, but more of that bottom up where individuals are constantly saying, is there a different way that we could be doing this? Could we do this better? How could we make this more easy? Or on the flip side, how can we actually make this harder? But what I mean by harder is it's putting more on me to cognitively think, and the other pieces are being done automatically. So I have the technology to take care of the easy stuff, which is putting more on me, agency on me to do things better in a different way.
Anything, Justin, Amy? I love it. Thank you.
That's
Justin,
I mean, that was such a great response. I totally agree with you. I mean, I just want to emphasize the point around culture. I think everything that that you're saying ultimately comes down to organizations building a culture that have this sort of inherent growth mindset, and transformation is much more of a mindset and a direction versus adoption's kind of back to that like check a box approach to change management. So my perspective is when thinking about transformation, we're at the very beginning of a journey with AI, and any project you do, you know, getting to the end of that project is actually just the very, very tip of the iceberg. So the mindset and the companies that will succeed in this future are the ones that recognize that and sustain transformation over the next, you know, many, many years, not get kind of to an endpoint, hit a local maximum and, you know, feel good and move on. So it really is that growth mindset that's critical to driving transformation.
Erin, any final thoughts here?
I mean, I agree. I was going to actually say adoption seems like the checkbox because, you know, you can adopt it, but it seems more of like a because I told you to versus like transformation because they want to. And so, you know, where they've completed the adoption journey and they're bought in. And so that's where the magic happens, is in the transformation. And so you can put a product in front of anybody. They can adopt it lightly. They can adopt it highly, but until you've gotten to the transformation stage, it's not.
I love it. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to give it a few minutes here. If anybody out there has any questions, I know we've had some come up and some comments and some agreements, but definitely if anybody out there has a question, feel free to type it in. Otherwise, we'll give it a second. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but we'll give it a second. Guys, I have to tell you, I'm super appreciative of you three coming on and, you know, spending your time with us. I know that there is so much to be said, from implementation to the product you choose to change management and change readiness. I think that, you know, there's a lot. And so if I was going to ask each of you, maybe like, what is one thing that you would want to impart based off of your expertise? So maybe something to tell folks as they're leading into AI or questions to ask. We'll start with our first, Justin. What would be kind of a final thought here from you?
Yeah, I think my final takeaway here is just start. There's really no excuse to do nothing at this point. I was thinking about the risk aversion and kind of companies seeing risky doing something. I would argue, you know, what is the risk of doing nothing? And the risk of doing nothing, the risk of status quo today is so much larger. I think there is, frankly, existential risk for companies that are stuck in status quo. And we're seeing that play out in real time. So it is much more risky to do nothing than to do something. So start building that organization change muscle that we talked about before. Start small, you know, get a rep, and then continue from there. It is going to be a long and very exciting journey. And those that lean into it, I am very certain will reap the benefits.
I love it.
And if you're out there listening, like, you're not starting from zero. You now know Justin, you now know Amy, you now know Erin. Reach out to them. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions, point you in the right direction. I mean,
hold your
we're very
hand, whatever it
selective.
takes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hold your
So thank
hand
you.
and give you a tissue when the screws come.
Like tap you on the back.
We're all going to be okay. It's not the end of
exactly.
humanity.
Amy,
Exactly.
Erin, any final thoughts from you two?
I mean, I think I'm Team Justin. Like, you just got to get started. And so, and if you don't, you will never catch up. So, yeah.
I love it.
I mean, start small use cases, small risks, but start.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And I would say treat AI like a puppy.
Yeah.
Like, remember, it's like a puppy. It's going to take a lot of attention, intention, care, nurturing, a little bit of discipline. You can't just buy the puppy and let it just roam free. It requires a lot of care and feeding along the way.
We have one question that just came in, Justin. I saw you looking at it. Do you want to answer that one real quick?
Yeah, I did see it.
I see Valentine. Hi, Valentine.
Great
I
question.
can't
And
recall the
others,
chat, but I saw you earlier in there.
others feel free to chime in as well. So the question is, do you agree that it's the time for SMBs? Their ability to steer a smaller ship will allow them to outcompete? I 100% agree. I think whenever you're in a period where the ground is really shaking, given the technical landscape, there is going to be really a massive opportunity for companies to leapfrog, for both tech companies like the one I represent, as well as smaller staffing firms, for example. I think have an amazing advantage right now to be able to move quick, adopt technology, not start with some kind of cultural debt or process debt that's within an organization, and be able to build a company with the tools that we have at our disposal in 2025. I'm very confident that we will see those winners emerge over the next year and further out.
Well, guys, I love it. We're at time. We probably will get back together. I've gotten questions on the side, people texting. So guys, thank you so much. Our first live LinkedIn event. Super thankful for you all being here today. And again, guys, reach out to Amy, Justin, Erin. They've been in the business. They know the business. And thank you so much for being our experts today, guys.
Yeah.
And thank you to our community. Thanks for joining. Thanks for liking. Thanks for listening. Share it if you can. Appreciate you all.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.